To this point, you have seen demonstrations on doing an online installation of your SUSE Manager 4 server, completing the initial and administrative configuration procedures for your SUMA 4 server, and syncing product content down from the SUSE Customer Center, the SCC, to your SUMA 4 server. Typically, the next steps organizations take when deploying SUMA 4 throughout their organization is to install and configure their SUMA proxy servers in their remote office and campus locations. You will see how to install a SUMA 4 proxy server when that server does not have a connection to the internet during the registration portion of the installation. In this case, the server where the proxy server is being installed will leverage an internal RMT server. A repository mirroring tool server is a product extension that you can install on a SLES 15.x server. A RMT server acts as an internal proxy system for the SCC channel and repository content and allows you to register servers during installation to the RMT server rather than requiring an internet connection to get to the SCC. To further your understanding of the SUMA 4 environment we are deploying, I want to show you a graphic depicting the virtual environment in which my demonstrations of the SUMA 4 proxy server installation will take place. At this point, not all of the VMs pictured here exist, but the admin-ws, ex-services, and SUMA 4-od VMs are installed and configured. Let me describe the purpose of these VMs and how they relate to the SUMA proxy server VM I will be installing. The EX Services VM is an RMT server built on SLES 15 SP1. This VM also provides DHCP services for the 172.17.20.0 subnet and provides DNS and NTP services for all subnets. The SUMA 4-OD server VM is the SUMA 4 server you saw me install and configure in previous demonstrations. The SUMA proxy server will ultimately be registered with this SUMA server as a SALT minion running the SUMA proxy services. The admin-ws VM is an OpenSUSE Leap 15 SP1 workstation used as the SUMA administrator's workstation. Now, in this particular demonstration, though, I will not be needing that VM. The EX-Proxy1 proxy server VM is what I will be installing in this demonstration. This proxy server will provide DHCP, imaging, routing, registration, and patching services for any client servers on the 172.17.30.0 subnet. The proxy server will have two NICs, one on the quote-unquote corporate backbone network, which is represented by the 172.17.20.0 subnet, which I have defined in libvirt as corp-net, and the other NIC is on the local remote network, represented by the 172.17.30.0 subnet, known as branch-net. You'll see how the corporate RMT server running on the EX-Services VM is leveraged to provide product registration and access to repositories for product updates and patches for the SUMA proxy server. I want to start this demonstration by showing you the virtual machines that I'll be using. And I'll start with the EX-Services VMs, which is my RMT, DHCP, DNS, and NTP server. I'll get to a terminal screen here and run a command that'll show you the content that's been mirrored down to this RMT server from the SCC. Notice this command, rmt-cli products list. I'm going to pipe this through a pipeline so I can get more information on the screen here. And I'm more interested in simply the product ID, the product name, and the product version. So that's what this pipeline is doing. Here you see the output of that pipeline. And the first column is the product ID as it's known in the SCC. The second column is the product's name. And then the third column that I cut out from the RMT CLI command is the version for that product. So let's take a look at some of the important products that I've mirrored down to this RMT server. Here you see the SUSE Manager Proxy product information that I've mirrored down for version 4.0. And you see the SUSE Manager Proxy module. So to do an offline installation of SUSE Manager Proxy, you would definitely need product IDs 1900 and 1908 to be mirrored down to an RMT server. Here you see that I've also mirrored down products for the SUSE Manager server itself. And SUSE Manager Tools is also an important product to mirror down. I'll run another command, rmt-cli space repos. And what this will do is show you the repositories for this content that has been mirrored down. So there could be one or more repositories of content for each one of these products. And once again, I'll put it through a pipeline so I can get a more condensed version of the information I'm looking for. So these are the repos that actually exist on the RMT server EX-services. So you see the base system information for SLE 15SP1. You see the server applications for SLE 15SP1, both the pool and the update repos. Those are important repos to have mirrored down. Here you see repos for the SUSE Manager Proxy, both the pool and the update repos. Repos for the SUSE Manager server itself. Product repos for the operating system, SLES 15SP1, the pool and the update repos. And lastly, the product repos for SUSE Manager Proxy 4.0, both the pool and the updates. Here you see the product repos for SUSE Manager itself, pool and the update repos. So this RMT server has enough content mirrored down to it that I could do offline installations for both SUSE Manager and SUSE Manager Proxy, as well as operating systems for SLES 15SP1 and SLES 12SP4. Next, we'll take a look at the SUMA 4 server. So I'll switch to the console of the SUMA 4-OD VM. Here you can see that this SUMA server was installed using the default text mode, which is analogous to run level 3. This SUMA server has been through the initial and administrative configurations, and so it's ready to support client servers. This server is sitting on the corporate backbone network, which is corp-net, and the server has a 172.17.20.16/24 address on that network. This is the administrator's workstation, admin-ws. Now, I won't be using it in this demonstration, but I do want to show you that this will be where I'll be launching the SUMA Web UI. So let me go ahead and get authenticated into the operating system. And here you see my browser with the URL for the SUMA 4 server that I installed. And I'll go ahead and authenticate into the Web UI. And let me show you that in this SUMA system at this point there are no registered clients. And after I install and configure and then register the proxy server, it'll show up here in the Web UI. The last thing I want to show you before I get into the installation of the proxy server is the hardware configuration of the EX-Proxy1 server that will become the SUMA 4 proxy server. This VM has two NICs, one on the corp-net corporate backbone and the other on the branch net local network. This server will have no access to the internet. The EX-Proxy1 proxy server will do its product registration via the RMT server running on the EX-Services VM. This server also has 2 disk drives. The second larger disk will be used as a separate XFS file system mounted on the /var/cache/squid directory. This is the directory in which the SUMA proxy server caches its content. Also know that I have a SLES 15 SP1 installation media ISO containing the unified installer mounted on the VM's DVD drive. So let me go ahead and start the installation by going to the console view of this VM and powering up the VM. Remember, it'll try to boot off of the ISO attached to its DVD player. And here we see the unified installer starting to come up. What I'll do is cursor down to installation, and I'm going to use some boot options here to specify addressing information. So I'm going to use the if CFG equals ETH0 option, where I'm going to specify the IP address for the ETH0 NIC of 172.17.20.240 with a subnet mask of 24 bits. I'm going to specify the gateway address for this host that I'm installing of 172.17.20.35, which is the IP address of the EX-Services VM. And I'm also using that as the DNS server. So I've specified its IP address a second time. And then I'm specifying here the DNS zone of this server. And it's going to be lan30.example.com. So it's actually a subzone of example.com. Now I'm specifying the IP addressing for the second NIC, the ETH1 NIC, which is attached to the branch net network of 172.17.30.240 with a 24-bit subnet mask. Now I'll use the host name boot option to specify the complete FQDN of this proxy server. So I've hit enter, and now the unified installer is starting to bring up a basic OS to do the installation. Here you see the opening installation screen where it's trying to update itself. The installer is trying to update itself here, but remember, this machine does not have a connection to the outside world. So this will actually time out. So now I get my keyboard selection and product selection screen, and you can see the product listed here that I want to install, SUSE Manager Proxy 4.0. So I'll select that and click Next, which will get me to my license screen for the proxy server. I'll agree to that and click Next. And my registration screen will be displayed next. Now, before I choose anything here, I'm going to show you the network configuration I'm currently operating under based on those boot options that I put in. So here you can see the ETH0 interface with 172.17.20.240 with a 24-bit subnet mask, 255.255.255.0. And here's the ETH1 interface of 172.17.30.240, once again with a 24-bit subnet mask. And the hostname information, here is the IP address of my services VM, EX-Services, and this domain that this machine is going to be in is lan30.example.com. And I'll change the set hostname via DHCP to no. Now what I do want to change here on the routing screen is I want to make sure that I enable IP version 4 routing between the NICs on this machine. So I'm now saving the network configuration. Back to my registration screen. And I'm going to register with the RMT service on my services VM. So I'm going to put the URL in of my services VM, which is https ex-services.example.com. And I'll click Next. And I get a message here, dialog box, saying that I don't know anything about the certificate from that RMT server. I need to trust and import this certificate. I'll click the button for that. Now you see I'm connecting to the RMT server. I'm registering the products. It says this RMT server has some updated repositories. You want to use them? I'll click yes. Here you see the products that must be installed for a proxy server. And this information right here, all these RPM patterns are going to come from the RMT server. Now there is other stuff if I wanted to that I could install by unchecking hide development versions. I'm actually not interested in that, so I'm going to just choose what I need for the proxy server and click next. Now if I had any additional applications, maybe third-party applications that I wanted to install, I could click, I would like to install an additional add-on product, and then choose how I was going to access that content, what protocol or what device that content would be found on. Now this system role screen here specifies that I'm going to use this server as a SUSE Manager proxy server, so I'll simply click next on this screen. The next thing that pops up is my partitioning screen based on the system role screen immediately preceding this screen. Now there is one thing missing here, and that is my second drive, /dev/SDB. It's not shown here. So I'm going to go into the expert partitioner starting with this current proposal, and I'm going to add that second drive in because that second drive is the larger of the two drives, and I want to use that drive for the directory that the proxy server uses to cache all its content. So this is a 140 gigabyte drive, /dev/SDB. Notice there is no partition here. I need to add a partition. I'm going to take the entire drive for this partition. I'll click next. The role here is going to be data and ISV applications. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the default file system here type of XFS, but I'm going to mount this on /var/cache/squid. So this is a best practice we have for SUMA 4 proxy servers, that you should have a separate XFS file system for the directory that the proxy server uses for its caching of its content. So I'll click next. There it is. And I'll accept this in the partitioner, which will bring me back to the suggested partitioning screen. And here you can see now I've got a partition on /dev/SDB, and it's 140 gig in size, formatted with XFS. My next screen will be the time zone related information. I'll go ahead and change the time zone here to the time zone of where the host that's running these VMs is located, which is on our Provo campus in Utah. So I'll select the Denver time zone. But I also want to have this proxy server leverage the NTP service on EX-services. So I'm going to synchronize this with my own internal NTP server here by specifying the FQDN of my NTP server of ex-services.example.com. I want to make sure that I save my NTP configuration here. I'll click Accept. Back to my time zone screen. Server synced up. I'll click Next. And I need to create a local user on this proxy server. Now this is a non-root user. So I'll type in a username and password and confirm that password. And notice I did not check automatic login. That's a personal preference, but I prefer that for security reasons. This screen is for the root user on that system. And it should be a different password than the one that I put in for the normal user. So now I see my installation settings screen and what's going to be installed and how the OS is going to be configured. Notice here that SSS is enabled, but the port was blocked, so I opened it up so I can use SSH to access it. Notice my network configuration information here, which is what I specified via the boot options. And you'll see that the default systemd target is text mode, which means this server by default will boot up in run level 3. And these are the software packages that will be installed. Now, I clicked the link to look at the software packages because I want to add some additional content here. I'm going to go ahead and run this server in graphical mode. So I need to make sure that the graphical environment, the X11 environment, is installed. Plus, I may want to use this proxy server in the location as a file server of some type, so I'll check that. And notice that my SUSE Manager proxy pattern is checked by default, and I also need this to be a DHCP server for that location. So if you look now, my software that's being installed has changed from the last time we were on this screen, because you can see the file server and the DHCP server being installed along with X Windows. And notice it automatically, since I selected X Windows, it automatically changed the systemd target to graphical mode. So this is my last sanity check here to confirm that I actually want to install on this machine. And I'll click the install button, and I'm off and running. This process, given what I've selected, takes about 8 to 10 minutes to install all this stuff. So I'll cut out almost all of that from the demo here, so you don't have to just watch these green bars. Here, the installation is completed and the machine is going to reboot. Machine's rebooting. Now the ISO is still attached to the DVD player, so what you see here is a screen that once I disconnect that ISO, I'll never see again and go right to this screen. So the machine's booting up. And here's my X11 GUI. I'll go ahead and log in as that non-root user. And here's my desktop of my SUMA 4 proxy server. Let's go check some information here. I'll get to a console prompt on this server. I'll go ahead and SU as root. Let's check the IP addressing here. You can see ETH0 does have an IP address of 172.17.20.240 with a 24-bit subnet mask. ETH1 has the IP address 172.17.30.240 with a 24-bit subnet mask. That's the local network in the remote location, the branch net. Let's see if I can ping some of my important servers here, particularly the SUSE Manager server, which is suma4-od.example.com. So I can ping that from the proxy server. And let me also ping my services VM, ex-services. And that's good. And let me verify my host name here as well. I'll use the hostname CTL command to make sure that the desired host name is set. And there it is, ex-proxy1.lan30.example.com. Now at this point, the proxy server has been installed. However, the SUMA server does not yet know about this proxy. That will happen during the configuration part of this process that I'll show you in the next demonstration.